Hi everyone, this is Grace of GB Maltese, and this is a picture of Isaac. Many of you have heard me talk about him before. He is a young man that I taught in school. He came here from Honduras. We became like family members. I'm going to tell a little bit about his story today. He is my Marine. He calls me abuelita. I call him my nieto. And he is a fabulous young man. He graduated from boot camp last year, and I have not shown his picture before, and people have been wanting to see my handsome nieto. Isn't he? He's just, and his inside is more beautiful than the outside. This is just an amazing young man. So, I had told you not too long ago that he brought me a Christmas present. And this is what he brought me. Isn't this adorable? I have this sitting out where I can see it all the time. It's the Marine Bulldog. And he is just precious. I just love it. It was so sweet of him to think of me and bring this to me. So I'm going to have them sitting here beside me as I chat with you. I am going to do a WIP and Chat, and I'm going to work on my clock that I've been working on that I did during one of my stories. And this is so funny. Before I get started talking about Isaac, let's look down at my... It's a beautiful, beautiful clock. I love it. I really, really love this clock. But what is so funny, and a friend pointed it out to me, that the number 4 for the Roman numeral should have been an I and a V. Do you know, I did not even notice that. I didn't. And I'm like, oh my goodness. But you know, it's okay. It's going to be okay. I can see that that is a 4. And then we have 5. The rest of them look like they're okay. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Yes. That's the only one but I thought that was hilarious because I hadn't even noticed it. I'm just like, okay, that shows about how much I pay attention to things. But I thought I'd work on this. I really am liking this. The only thing I was looking at when I opened this were all the beautiful stones. And you can see I have some put on there. And I'm going to put some more on there today. I started with number 1, and I'm going to continue putting my number 1s on there until I'm finished putting them on. And there are quite a few number 1s. So I'm going to pull this paper up. I did get this clock from gbfke.com, and I'll put a link to the clock below. I'll try to remember to do that. Let me tell you something. Sometimes it's easy to forget what you said you're going to do. Now, I know there's a little bit of a glare. Try to work with that a little bit. Because I've got to tell you a comment that I got the other day that at first it kind of upset me, and then I just laughed. And my husband we just laughed. Some people can just be rude. I don't know if they mean to be rude or if they just become stupid, or I don't know. You know, it comes to the point that if you let those things bother you, then, hey, I'd never get on here and do anything. And I like doing this too much, so I'm not going to let it bother me. These are the colors I'm working with. Aren't they pretty? And I got this beautiful tray from Wilson 3D Designs. I'll put a link below. I really do like this. This comes in 2 pieces. This piece fits on top like that, so they stack. And then it has the lid that goes on the top one. So when I'm not using it, I can put them together like this and put it to the side. Okay. And this is the silk teal. I love this color so much. It's beautiful. And it's got the spout, which is really nice when you're pouring things out. You don't have to need a funnel or anything else. And I'm using my wooden pen and my everlasting tips and my glue dots. Here are my glue dots. I love using the glue dots. They work fantastic. And I have a video that I did on how I use my glue dots in my everlasting tips, because that is my favorite way to do it. Okay. Now, let me see. Okay. Well, I thought I was trying to do something with my screen. I thought I was making it bigger, but I made it smaller. That just goes to show I don't know what I'm doing sometimes. Anyway, let's get started with this little WIP and Chat. I'll just talk until I've said what I want to say, I guess. Okay, the way I have this, it's going to be kind of weird. Let me see if I can put this down a little more so you can see what I'm doing. It's probably not real clear with the numbers, but I'm the one that needs to see the numbers more than you two to put these little babies down. And here we go. I hope you're having a fabulous day. And as you can hear, this is made of metal. And I just thought it was gorgeous when I saw it. Okay, let me tell you some about my sweet nieto, Isaac. He moved to the United States in 2014. He was 13 when he first got here, but by the time he started school, because he's an August birthday, he was 14. And they put him in the 7th grade instead of the 8th. I don't know, I guess because since he didn't speak any English. Anyway, I was very, I must say, privileged to have him in my classroom because we did become so close. I become close to a lot of my students, but he is more special because of some of the things he had to go through. Not only after he got here, but before. When he was, I think it was probably about 7 years old, his mother and father divorced. They were living in Honduras, and his mother came to the United States, and he was living with his father and stepmother. Well, Isaac also has a sister named Abby, and Abby is, I believe, about 4 years younger than Isaac. Trying to remember now. No, maybe 3. She's going to be 18 in May. And yes, I do keep in contact with her also. But Isaac was the one I worked with first because he was in my classroom. His sister was put in 5th grade, and that was at a different school with a different teacher. Anyway, I had probably 5 to 7 students who didn't speak any English that year. And I kept those kids with me and taught them all subjects. Not the same subjects that their classmates were learning because they needed to learn English first. Okay, now that showed the numbers there for a second. What happened? Oh, maybe I need to do it like that. Okay. Anyway, he didn't know any English. But he told me about his journey over here. And that's what I kind of want to talk about a little bit about that. Well, his mother, as I said, left, and he was living with father and stepmother. Stepmother began abusing them, hitting them. She was very cruel to them. And he ended up going to his aunt's house for a while. His aunt let his mom know what was going on. And the aunt was actually sisters to his dad. So you know it had to have been pretty bad if she is contacting someone that's not, going against her own brother, that the abuse was pretty bad. They were able to get a visa for child abuse to come here. So everything was done legally. But the mother had to pay, I believe it was about $12,000 to get them here. They pay someone that they call a coyote that brings them from down south up to the border. So he told us just a little bit about the trip. He said that a few times they were stopped by bandits, or banditos, and since he and his sister's mom had paid, they did not have to get off the bus. But some of the others got off the bus and they were robbed. Because, these were not nice people who were stopping the bus. They robbed them. And many of them, they didn't have any money. They didn't have any way to go on. So they, I guess that was the end of their journey. I don't know. Some of them may have been put back on after they were robbed. He didn't go into a whole lot of detail. This was when he first came. And he was just telling us bits and pieces. But he told us that, they were given like little sandwiches or something to eat. And it took several days because they're coming from Honduras, which is in, of course, Central America. Came up through Mexico. And the people of Mexico do not like people from Colombia and Honduras and those places. So they traveled through there on the bus, straight through. When they got to the border, he told me that they were put into like a room, okay? I guess for lack of a better word, kind of like a barracks maybe. And they had some beds, but he said that I think he ended up sleeping on the floor. He was a kid. The others that were in the room, they tell him whatever they wanted to do. And I'm not talking about the guards. I'm talking about the other people who were coming in. But they were staying at the detention center, and he said they were fed. And he was also taught some of the history of the United States, which I had no idea they did that. By the time he got to my room, he knew what all the colors of the flag meant. He knew more than a lot of our native citizens knew. I was very impressed with him that he really wanted to learn, and really, it was important to him. He wanted to fit in. So he would tell us these things, of course, in Spanish at that time. They were told things in Spanish at the border. They fed them. He said sometimes, just sandwich or whatever. And he and his sister were separated. They're not going to put the boys and the men and the women together. That can cause all kinds of problems. I mean, his little sister needed to be with other ladies, not with men. And they were sent up here with no adults, but nothing happened to them. I hear a lot of stories of people saying, the kids are sent up here and they're treated bad. Well, he had no story like that. He was nothing like that at all. His sister was put in another place. And I have had several students in my classroom that were sent here with no parent. They were sent up here. Their parents wanted them to have a better life. So some of them were sent here to live with maybe an uncle or a cousin or someone else. But they went about it legally. They went through the detention center and did what they were supposed to do. Then I think he told me they were there about a month. I'm not real sure. But his mother lived here in the town that I live in. And she was with another man at that time. He called him his stepdad. They were more like common law marriage type thing. But he came here. His mom had a baby with this man that she's living with at the time. So they moved in, and then they brought them to enroll them in school. So that's when I first met Isaac. And as I said, I had several kids in my classroom, and we would sit and we would talk. I had a paraprofessional in my room who spoke English and Spanish. I took a lot of Spanish in high school, so I knew a lot of what they would say, and I would do my best to speak to them, because the Spanish we learn in school is like the Spanish they speak in Spain. It's more of the proper English, kind of proper Spanish, excuse me, kind of like our proper English. We don't normally speak proper English. Okay, get off of there. Now, when that gets too sticky, I just rub it on my palm or my back of my hand to get the stickiness off the glue dots. Sometimes they can be real sticky. Anyway, so I did my best, and they'd get a kick out of listening to me speak Spanish sometimes, and that was fine. I said, I don't mind, I don't care. You can laugh. I'm easygoing like that, and it made no difference to me. Now, if they'd come in there and, slap me around and kick me, yeah, we'd have had a problem. But they were not being disrespectful. They just thought it was funny. They'd hear me speak English, and then when I'd speak Spanish, it would be something different for them. And I told them, I said, by Christmas, okay, this is August. We start school in August. I said, by Christmas, you're going to be speaking all in English in this classroom. And they were just like, they were scared to death. I said, just trust me, you will. So we went through teaching, of course, the phrases that they needed to say. Survival English is what we call it. Like if you don't feel good, you need to, like I said, they were with me most of the time. They did go to PE and their elective classes, and we put them together so that they would be able to help each other out, and try to also have another student in there who spoke both English and Spanish that could kind of explain things to them. Because I had kids all day long, since they were all in different grades. So it didn't matter to me. I just wanted to be there for the kids. It didn't matter to me whether I had any time off or not. Only time we had off was for lunch. We all went to lunch at the same time, which was good. They all went together. I had them all go where they would be together so they'd have each other to talk to, and they met other people in their classes. Well, as time went by, I would have them tell me about their weekend. And, when we first did it, they'd tell me in Spanish. I'd tell them about my weekend, and Estella, my parapro, she'd tell about hers. And then they would tell about, theirs. And then I'd start having them add more English to it, because I was teaching them different phrases. And they got to where they were speaking more and more English. And I tell you what, it was before Christmas. They were speaking English, understanding, knew what they were talking about. And so they were able to go into a regular math class after Christmas break and able to understand it and pass it. So I was so proud of all of them. Just such great kids. And Isaac and I, he was just such a fun. He's just a funny guy. He's lots of fun to be around. He can be very serious, and he can be very funny. People like to be around him. And I knew he would make lots of friends. And, of course, a lot of the girls liked him. And I'm mother hen to my kids, and I just wanted to watch over them. But as we got to know each other better, and I got to know his mom, she actually became one of our ESL representatives. And when she couldn't come to the school, we would go to her home to get her to talk about things that were going on in the ESL classroom that would involve other students. And that's how ESL works. It's just one parent that helps make some of the decisions on placement and that type of thing. I don't want to get too technical, like it's boring. But she was so sweet. She didn't speak any English, but we hit it off and became very close. She considered me her friend. I considered her my friend. She became pregnant the next year. And I did not have Isaac in my class, but just one period a day that time, because he was able to go out into classes and pass them. After spending that time with me the year before, he understood English and he could pass the classes, and same with the other kids. That was my goal, to get them out to classes so they could pass. Anyway, his mother had gotten pregnant. Well, I guess she was pregnant before the end of the year while I still had him in class, because she had the babies. Yeah, she had twins. She had the babies in October of the next year. And I found out about the babies, and she had a baby shower, and of course I went to that. And when the babies were born, she was in the hospital. The hospital's right next to our school. This is at the junior high. She texted Isaac to see if I could bring him to the hospital. Of course, I'd taken him other places. She knew it would be fine. She trusted me and all that. So I did. I took him, and she had just had the babies that day. They were precious. And I got to hold both the babies. So that was exciting. Isaac held the babies, and I'll tell you what, Isaac fell in love with those kids. You would have thought he was the daddy of those children. He did whatever he could to help them all the time. Well, so they were born in October. And about January, he told me that there was something wrong with one of the girl's eyes. Her name is Kimberly. And what was happening is her eyeball was coming out of the socket. It was hanging out, sort of. So the mother took her to Texas Children's Hospital, and they discovered she had a cancerous tumor behind her eye, and it kept growing. They could not do surgery because of the location of the tumor. Her eye came completely out of the socket and was just hanging out. I felt so sorry for the poor thing. Oh my gosh, she was just a few months old. So they started giving her chemo, and she was having to go for chemo. I can't remember how many times she was going, but they were having to go for the chemo treatments. His mother didn't drive, so she would have to get someone to drive her to these appointments. So while her daughter was being treated, they discovered his mother also had cancer. She had it in her ovaries and all in there. She had a huge cancer on her ovary. So they were going to have to do a hysterectomy on her. And I remember talking to her and trying to comfort her and let her know we were praying for her. So we have both the mother and the baby with cancer. Now, since it was where it was located, they said they would do surgery and remove it. And they did. They removed the tumor. And I'm not sure if she had a complete hysterectomy. I'm really not sure. But anyway, they got all of that removed. So it was wonderful. So she wasn't having to worry about that now. And then Kimberly, she had been on chemo for about 1.5 years, I suppose. And she was then declared cancer-free and got to ring the bell. So they, everyone was just excited and happy. And they were going to wait until Kimberly was a little bit older. And they were going to put her eye, if they couldn't put her eye back in the socket, they were going to give her a glass eye. But they said they were pretty sure they could put the eye back in. Well, that was going to be a few years later. Because, as I said, the eye was out of the socket. It was still encased in the lid and all of that. I don't want to show pictures. I just don't think that's right for me to do that. But Isaac had sent me pictures. Of course, I saw her. And hold her and just a love bug. Both of those girls were just little love bugs. I held her, snuggled her, kissed her. And she was a fighter, let me tell you. So they had that plan that one day she would have her eye put back in. She couldn't see out of it. She was blind in that eye, of course. In the meantime, the mother develops cancer in another spot. I'm not sure if it was in her lungs to start with, but it did end up going there. And she had to start having chemo. And again, she had no one to take her because her husband was working. He's trying to make money to support the family. So she would try to get people to take her. Sometimes she had to pay someone to take her if she couldn't get a ride. I remember one evening, Isaac texted me and he said, "Are you busy tomorrow?" And I said, "Well, yeah, I had work the next day or whatever." And I said, "Why, do you need something?" He said, "Oh, no, it's nothing important." Come to find out, his mother didn't have a ride, okay? Isaac was at the time 15 or 16. He might have been 16. And he couldn't get his driver's license at the time. I was going to teach him driver's ed. But it has to be a member of the family. Since I wasn't his guardian, and if it wasn't a member of the family, it had to be someone that had U.S. citizenship, had to have a driver's license. Well, his mother didn't have that. So I wasn't able to teach him. And I'll get more on that later about that. But I found out later he drove his mother to that appointment. Praise God that he was not stopped. I don't know what they would have done at that point. But Isaac is the kind of guy you want on your side. He's the take charge, take control type of person. And he drove his mother to her appointment so she could have her chemo. And there were times he would miss school because he would go with her to her appointments because he had to translate. And I talked with the office, and they understood, and they were very good about the times he had to be out because he always caught up with what he needed to do. The teachers were all so kind. I know a lot of times people talk bad about teachers, but let me tell you, most teachers are just as good as gold, and they're there for your kids. There's always someone that's going to be an exception to the rule, but on the most part, they're great. And so he had to do that. And while she was going through this, I crocheted a prayer shawl for her. And I asked what her favorite colors were, and she had told me that they were pink and red and black. And I had some yarns, and I made her a shawl. I may have a picture of her in it, but I'm not going to. I'm not going to look for that. But she wore that any time she went for her chemo. If she came over to the house, she had it on. And, you know, this was like in March and April. So it wasn't real cold, but I know that she would get cold in those rooms. Anyway, about 2 weeks, it was the end of April. Sometime in April, she came by and had the shawl on, and we were talking, and she was just smiling. She was always smiling and happy. And that's the way Isaac is. He's always smiling. And he said that's how he gets through things, just to have a smile. And, you know, I look at him and think of what all he's been through, and I just get ashamed of myself sometimes that I let myself get down. He's just, I cannot say enough good things about him. Anyway, moving along, his mother kept going for her treatments, and I got a phone call it was on May the 5th. I'll never forget because it was Cinco de Mayo. About 11 or 11:30 at night. And before I could get to the phone, I was in bed because I had work the next day. Before I could get to the phone had stopped ringing. And I saw that it was Isaac, and I'm like, oh my gosh, what has happened? And I tried calling him back, and he didn't answer. So I texted him, and he texted me back that his mom was gone. She had passed. And I was just devastated. I felt so bad. Here was Isaac and Abby, and then there was Genesis, who the mom had when they first got here, and then there were the twin girls. And that was just painful. Isaac was 17 at the time. That was very hard for him. I'm not going to talk about certain things that happened. He really was distressed by all of it, but he stepped up for those girls. I'm going to tell you something. The father, you know, still was working. He called him his stepdad. Not really a stepdad, but anyway. The mother had said that she did not want Abby. Abby was 15 at this time. She had actually she was 14. She would be 15 in 2 more weeks. And she had talked to her pastor and told the pastor she did not think it was right for Abby to live in the same home as a man that's not really her father. So the pastor did. He still has her in his home. She's going to be, she's going to be 18 this May. So, it's been almost 2 years since they lost their mom. Or is it going on 3? Oh my gosh. Time just goes so fast. Anyway, in the time Isaac stayed in the home to help take care of those little girls, I've never seen anything like it. When Isaac turned 18, he was still living in that home because he turned 18 that next August. And I was able to get him a course online. He passed his test for his driver's license, the written part, and then I took him to do the application part. We let him drive us around. I mean, if a boy can drive through downtown Houston, take his mom for a cancer appointment, yeah, he can drive. He's very reliable. Anyway, he got his license, and he was able to, he got himself an inexpensive car to drive to school so that if the girls needed him, they were to call him at school so that the dad could keep making money to help the family. I'll never forget. Isaac's driver's license with the picture on it had come in, and so I went up to the school. I was going to give it to him, surprise him. And they told me that he wasn't there. And I'm like, he's not here? Where is he? And they said, well, he checked out. One of his sisters got sick, and he went home to take care of her. So I went on over to their home, and when I got there, Isaac was feeding, it was Kimberly, I believe, that was sick. It was one of the twins. And he had made homemade soup for her. That he'd watched his mom, and he was feeding her at the table. And I just always told him how proud of him I was. It just brings just a glow to me to think about what an amazing young man he is. And so I gave him his driver's license with the picture, and he was so excited to get it. And I stayed there for a little bit and talked with him. There was a lady that did come in to watch the girls, but if they got sick, Isaac was the one who could take them to the doctor and that type of thing now that he was 18. So, after a period of time, his stepdad, for lack of a better term, found someone. It was over a year, I guess, after his wife had passed. He met someone, and he eventually remarried. And Isaac was very upset because he never went to a marriage ceremony with his mom, and I don't blame him, because his mom wanted to, but you can't make somebody go if they're not going to go. So at this time, he decided he was moving out. So he moved in with a friend, and he was working at Burger King at the time. And the guy he was living with was the manager at Burger King. So he was very good to Isaac, and he didn't have to pay, I guess, a full rent. He paid what he could, and he was going to school. Then he decided during that summer he was going to take a course that our school offered where he could go ahead. He was going to be a senior the next year. He could go ahead and graduate because he said, I need to be working full time. So he did, and he passed. During that summer, he also, I didn't know he was doing this, he signed up to join the Marines. And I was just flabbergasted. I had no idea he'd even thought it, but he did. And my brother Daryl was alive at that time, and he talked to Isaac some, and over the phone. And he had met Isaac too, and thought Isaac was a very upstanding young man, and he really is. So Isaac signs up in the summer, but boot camp isn't going to be until February. So he has this time where he is preparing. The recruiters work them out so that they're kind of prepared a little bit for boot camp. Now, Isaac has always been in soccer and sports. He was very athletic. So that part was not a problem for him. When it was time for him to leave, that was the hardest part. Leaving those girls behind, he told me, was just so hard. I said, I know it's hard, Isaac, but they now had a new mama. He wasn't living there any longer. I said, but you need to also think about your future and how you can, things you can do. And he went. He passed boot camp with flying colors, excuse me. He even became a squad leader. He went through everything. So he has been in the Marines now for over a year and doing very well. He got to come home. Because of COVID, he did not get to come home after boot camp. We did not get to go to graduation. Nothing. And that was hard on him. Because they couldn't leave and go anywhere. And he had no one that, could go see him. So he made it. He did everything he needed to do. He's now a Lance Corporal, and I expect him to just keep moving right on up. He's doing just a wonderful job. Everything I hear from him, he's always happy. We got to have a long talk together at Thanksgiving, especially. I got to see him every day. Over Christmas, I didn't see him as much because I went to see my daughter part of the time. And, of course, he had several family members to see. But he is just an amazing young man. I'm just so proud of him. He has gone through so much. And he never gave up. To me, that shows something, that he never gave up on himself. Or, there were times that he was very sad. He really missed his mom, of course. He said, I was just getting back to knowing my mom a little bit, and then she was gone. But he's just amazing. I'm just thankful that he was put in my life, and he's like family. He and my husband would go fishing sometimes. They would go, he'd come sit out here and watch the birds with my husband some. So, yeah, he's friends with my husband. He knows my brother, Greg, because Greg just is about 100 yards away. And so, yeah, he knows all of them. He's met my daughter. He's met my sister and my brother Daryl. I'm proud to call him family. I truly am. I'm just proud. And, you don't have to have blood relations to be family. You just don't. You can become very close to someone like I did with Isaac. And I'm looking forward to when he'll get some more time to come see us again. He's just so much fun to talk to. He's got the most beautiful smile. He was so upset in his Marine picture graduation, that he didn't get to smile because he always smiled. And they called him Smiley because he was smiling all the time. They didn't like it, but you're not going to wipe that smile off of his face. And he may not have as much to smile about as somebody else, but you know what? He has such a good attitude that I need to be more like my nieto. Of course he gets sad. Everybody gets sad sometimes, and I would talk with him through some of those sad times. It was hard. It was hard on him losing his mom. Of course it was hard. And he hasn't seen his dad since he's been here, but he hopes to one day maybe make a trip over to see him. So, he's a man now. He's not a little kid. And he was just the cutest thing. The girls were crazy about him in school. And I just told him, and he has a mustache now. I just thought it was so funny. That was one thing he used to talk about in school. He always wanted to have a mustache. And now he has one. He was so happy that he can now grow one. They allow the mustaches in the Marines, but not a beard. And, of course, he's still handsome with or without a mustache. But what's on the inside is absolutely the most important. So, I hope you enjoyed just hearing a little bit more about Isaac. I can't fit in every little thing over the several years that I've known him. I just know that he is has he made mistakes? Of course. Has he learned from those mistakes? Yes, he did. He admitted some things to me that I'm not going to talk about. And he knew that wasn't what he wanted to be. So he is 20 years old now. And he'll be 21 next August. I cannot believe it. Oh my gosh. He's going to be a legal adult for anything here in the state of Texas. I don't know what the legal age is in other states for. I just told him, don't go out and go getting drunk all the time. Because you hear about that happening sometimes in the service. He said, I'm not going to. He said, there are some of the guys do that. And I tell him, now listen, you know you're going to have to do PT in the morning and you're going to be sick. And he's got a good head on his shoulders. I'm not going to say he's perfect because I don't know anybody perfect, including myself especially. We're not perfect, but let me put my Nieto's picture here one more time so you can get another look. He is just as handsome as he can be. Just a good all-around young man. He earned that Globe and Anchor by hard work and hard sweat. Maybe is it the Eagle Globe and Anchor? I guess it may be. Yeah, the Eagle Globe and Anchor is what they call the pin. And you cannot wear that until you have, I forget the name of somebody out there probably remembers the name of the hill that they have to go up. But they have to, they go without sleep like for 48 hours during this, to earn this Globe and Anchor. And they put them through some really tough stuff. So he's my tough guy. He's a tough guy. And I'm proud of him. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this little whip and chat and getting to know my Nieto a little better. Take care, you guys. I love you. God bless. And I will talk to you again soon. Bye.